and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Today I'll be doing a college football game-by-game prediction and roster discussion video for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So Arkansas had the 30th ranked recruiting class in the country in 2025. They didn't have any 5-star players, but they did have 3 4-star players. But if you're an Arkansas fan, I'll just go ahead and tell you that you're not gonna like this video because I think Arkansas is gonna be one of the worst teams in the SEC this year, and I do not think Sam Pittman is a very good head coach. The only reason I think Arkansas made it to a bowl game last year is because Taylon Green is a good quarterback and Bobby Petrino is a good play caller and one of the best at coaching quarterbacks. So starting on the offensive side of the ball, they averaged at 30.5 points per game last year, which was a pretty good. And they ranked 18th in the country in passing, averaging 274.7 per game. I think their offense will be probably similar to what it was last year. So at quarterback, Taylon Green is the best player on Arkansas's team, I think, and he's one of the top returning quarterbacks in college football. He had a really good season last year, throwing for 3,154 yards, and he completed a 60.4% of his passes, which was a decent, and he threw 15 touchdown passes and averaged a good 8.3 yards per throw, and he also had 602 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns on 156 carries, averaging 3.9 yards per run.
Closer to the 8. Here's Green trying to win a foot race against Washington. Gets a block to the outside, and he will.
So at wide receiver, losing Andrew Armstrong is a pretty big loss. He had over 1,100 yards receiving last season. So they've redone their wide receiver room through the transfer portal, bringing in the 3 transfer wide receivers that all come from the group of 5 level. But they were all pretty good players where they came from. So they bring in Omega Blake from Charlotte, who had in 12 games last season 32 catches for 795 and 9 touchdowns, averaging a really good 24.8 yards per catch. And they bring in from Fresno State Raylan Sharp, who had in 11 games last season 51 catches for 523 and 3 touchdowns, averaging 10.3 a catch. And they bring in from UAB Cam Shanks, who had in 12 games last year 62 catches for 656 and 6 touchdowns, averaging 10.6 a catch. So it depends on how well these players play in the SEC on how good Arkansas's passing will be. But at running back, I don't think they'll be quite as good as they were last year, losing Jaquin Jackson, the running back they brought in last year from Utah, who had a good year. Now, I do still think they'll be solid at running back because they've got some decent running backs, but no great running back. So their offensive line is concerning. They only have 2 starters coming back, and they were pretty good in run blocking last year. They averaged 4.9 yards per run, and ranked 34th in rushing, averaging 184.8 yards per game. But they really struggled in pass protection, giving up 36 sacks last season, which is surprising because before Sam Pittman took the job at Arkansas, he was an offensive line coach and one of the best at that. But they do return at guard Fernando Carmona, who is one of the SEC's best offensive linemen. He only allowed 4 sacks last season. Defensively, they were pretty solid here last year. They gave up on average 22.3 points per game. But on their defensive line, they lose Landon Jackson, who is off to the NFL, and he was probably their best defensive player the last couple of years. But they do return Cameron Ball, who is a good player. He had last season 47 tackles and 1.5 sacks and 4 total quarterback pressures. And they do return 2 good backers. They return Xavier Soria, who had last season 99 tackles and 2 sacks and an interception and a pass breakup and 5 total pressures. And Stephen Diggs, who had last year 72 tackles and 2 sacks and a pass breakup and 5 total pressures. And the secondary was the weakness of their defense last year. They ranked 110th at stopping the pass, giving up 246.9 yards passing per game. And their secondary is going to be completely new this year. And except for losing TJ Metcalf at safety, who was a really good player, that's probably a good thing. But I still think this secondary is going to struggle. And I don't think this is going to be a very good defense overall this year. So now for the game by game predictions. Their first 2 games against Alabama A&M and Arkansas State should be blowout wins. Alabama A&M they could probably win at 70-0 if they wanted to, and Arkansas State may be good enough to challenge them for a half. But early in the second half, they should be able to pull away and put in their second string. And now on the road at Ole Miss. So looking back now at this game last year, it was actually a weird game because Ole Miss's offense, even though it was explosive last year, and Lane Kiffin is considered to be an offensive expert, it actually was not very good in conference games, except for this one game against Arkansas where they scored 56 offensive points. But other than that game in the SEC, they never scored more than 27 points. And this was the one game where the Ole Miss defense didn't look good. They gave up 31 points to Arkansas, but the rest of the season, they never gave up more than 21 points in regulation offensively to a team. And the Ole Miss offense, though, last year was, I think, the worst one since Lane Kiffin has been there. And I actually think they'll probably score more points this year than they did last year, but not in this game. I don't think they'll score as much as they did against Arkansas last year. And I think the Ole Miss defense will give up a lot more points than they did last year, but not in this game. I don't think they'll give up 31 points. I think Ole Miss is a much better team, and I think it'll be much closer than last year, but I think Ole Miss gets the win. So now on the road at Memphis. Oxford and Memphis are only about an hour and 15-minute drive from each other. So I don't even know if Arkansas will go back home in between these 2 games. And I had considered picking Memphis to win this game because last season they were probably the second best group of five team behind Boise State, and they've beaten a lot of Power Five teams in the past. They beat Ole Miss a couple of times in the last decade. But I looked at Memphis's roster, and they do not have very much coming back. So I am going to go with Arkansas to get a close win. And now Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame plays anywhere near their ceiling, there's zero chance that Arkansas wins this game because the Arkansas offensive line is going to be no match for the Notre Dame defensive line. So that'll take away their run game. And the Notre Dame secondary, I think, can slow down that Arkansas passing attack. And even though Notre Dame is questionable on how much they'll be able to get passing, they always are. But what they're never questionable at is their offensive line and running backs. And the Arkansas defensive line is going to be no match for them. I think Notre Dame will rush for over 200 yards in this game and get this win fairly easily. So now on the road at Tennessee. I don't think this is a good matchup for Arkansas because even though they've got the quarterback advantage. Tennessee's got a really good secondary, and Arkansas's got a terrible secondary, so that may still mean Tennessee's able to pass easier in this game. And even though Tennessee doesn't have a good running quarterback like Arkansas does, Tennessee's offensive line, I think, is a little bit better, and their defensive line, I think, is a lot better. So I think that'll give them the advantage in the run game too. And with this being a revenge game for Tennessee and it being a road game for Arkansas, I just don't see Arkansas winning this game. And now Texas A&M. So similar quarterbacks in this game. Marcel Reed wasn't quite as good of a passer last year as Taylon Green was, but he was an even better runner. And Texas A&M's offensive line and running backs are a lot better than what Arkansas has got. And then defensively, the only spot where Arkansas can match Texas A&M would be a linebacker. Now, A&M had struggles in the secondary last year too, but not as much as Arkansas did. And they've got a lot of talent in their secondary. Arkansas doesn't have much talent, so if A&M can put it all together, they can have a really good secondary this year, and I think their secondary will be better this year. Now, if Arkansas is going to pull an upset win this year, I think this is probably it because it is at home, and A&M's not going to be an amazing team, I don't think. But A&M has owned Arkansas, so I still had to go with Texas A&M. So now Auburn. So if you watch my Auburn video from the other day, I picked Auburn to win this game. But I would not be surprised at all if Arkansas wins this game. But if you look at the matchup on paper between these two teams, it's not a good matchup for Arkansas because even though Arkansas is going to be a really good passing team, the strength of the Auburn defense is going to be their secondary. And even though Jackson Arnold, wasn't a very good quarterback last year, the Auburn wide receivers are better than Arkansas's, I think. And Arkansas's secondary, it being terrible, if Arnold can throw some decent passes, I think their wide receivers will win those one-on-ones with those Arkansas defensive backs. And Auburn, I think, has an advantage at the line of scrimmage on both sides, which means I think they'll have an advantage in the run game. So now Mississippi State, I do think Arkansas will win this game. But Mississippi State, I think, is the worst team in the SEC. Again, I think Arkansas is probably the third worst team ahead of Mississippi State and Kentucky, but because they have Taylor Green. But if they didn't have him, Arkansas might actually be the worst team in the SEC. say. So now on the road at LSU, I think LSU is going to be way too good for Arkansas to have a chance. I think this will probably be a blowout loss. LSU's quarterback Nussmeier, I think, is going to pick Arkansas apart, and I think LSU's secondary is going to be really good this year, and the Arkansas offensive line is going to be no match for that LSU front at seven. Mm, which will take away the run game. And then I think Arkansas is going to have a hard time stopping LSU's running back Caden Durham too. Now on the road at Texas, another game that I think is probably going to be a blowout loss. Texas's defense, I think, is going to be way too much for Arkansas. Their defensive line, I think, will dominate in this game, which will shut down the run for Arkansas. And their secondary, I think, can slow down the Arkansas passing attack. And then Arch Manning and those Texas wide receivers, I think, will have a good game. And I think LSU will be able to run well too in this. I mean, Texas will be able to run well in this one too because Texas has one of the deepest running back rooms in the country this season. And now Missouri. So Missouri's a team that I've changed my mind on this off season. At first, I didn't think they were going to be very good this year, but now I think they're going to be a good team. And Eli Drinkwitz is a coach that I've kind of changed my mind on. I think I might have been wrong about him. When Missouri had the really good year in 2023, I thought it was kind of a fluke. And even though I picked them to go 9-3 last year, which they did do, I thought it was because they had enough coming back from the year before that their offense would be really good and carry them. But actually, their offense was not very good, and I thought their defense would take a big step back, but it actually got even better. They were able to win games on defense last year, and I trusted their defense a lot more than Arkansas's, and I trust Eli Drinkwitz as a head coach right now a lot more than I do Sam Pittman. I think it'll be close, but I'm going with Missouri. So I've got Arkansas finishing the year at 4-8 overall and 1-7 in the conference. Thanks for watching and please subscribe and I'll be back soon.